Before I start, just a quick reminder that issue 3 of the Freedom magazine is out. I'd just like to say a big thank you because they send it to me, and you can get them sent to you, I believe, from the whiterose.uk. Do check them out. The Freedom magazine, issue 3, the new magazine that goes into all sorts of interesting parts about freedom and what we can do to help create it. And that's what we need at the moment. Anyway, like my monologue today, I wanted to talk about diaries. Are you somebody who keeps a diary? You know, the sort of thing. January the 1st, 1831. Set sail on the Beagle to the Galapagos Islands. January the 2nd. All that kind of stuff. Keeping a diary and noting down. I've been doing this for many years, and sometimes there are great holes, you know, months go past and I forget to do the entry, I've been too busy, or I've got ones which are just sort of daily, and they're not necessarily terribly interesting, but it is lovely to go back and read things, what you've done in the past. So here's something here. Friday the 30th of August 2019, recorded a piece in the studio about the beginning of World War II. In the studio to go out on the 1st of September. So there was a very boring, simple one, but others are much more in detail and can go on and talk about the weather, which is perhaps not so interesting, but they'll talk about, you know, the feelings, relationships, heartaches, all that sort of stuff. Are you somebody who does that? So, for example, I just thought what was happening on Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2020. The lovely Julia and I disappeared just before the lockdown was announced. We didn't think it was actually going to happen. I didn't think that dishevelled Prime Minister would come out and do it, but apparently he did. And we were away trying to make some videos for our Bald Explorer channel at the time. And this is what I wrote on Tuesday, the 24th of March, when we had to come away. We were staying overnight the night before at an Airbnb. We had to pack up and come home. I dropped Julia off and returned to my house, where I had not been allowed out apart from a short walk for about an hour. Now it's about keeping motivated and making the best of it. I am making 2 videos a day and going live on the Vogue show each night. That was on the 24th, the day after the Prime Minister told us that we had to lock down. And I was then determined, as you can tell, I was still going to go out and make videos and various things and just ignore all this guidance for a so-called virus. And I think it's important to keep this. Now, I think what I would love to do is to urge people to keep a diary now. If you've never done it, I would urge you. You see, we're in a digital world, where digital stuff can be kept online, it can be on a hard drive, it can be in the cloud. All of that could disappear very easily with a big magnetic pulse or something, or a sun flare or something like that. And memories could be wiped out. But more important, history. We are in the most interesting time that we've been in, certainly in all our lives, this particular moment in history. And I think it's essential that in an old-fashioned way, with pen and ink, in books that you keep secretly in your house, where nobody else can get hold of them and nobody can read them, that we collectively record what's going on. And I mentioned the weather and how, you know, that's kind of a bit boring, but it is actually very interesting, particularly now with the way that the weather is being manipulated by those people out there in the plains spraying the skies. And it'll be fascinating if you were to keep a record of where you are and what the weather was like. It is unusually cold here in June when the cloud is over, because these chemicals they're spraying in the skies are controlling the weather in a very nefarious way. And if we were to collect that information and record it by ink, on paper, not online so anybody else can read it, it's not there for sharing yet, but we're holding books that in the future may be the history of this period. We can write all sorts of stuff about the nonsense, the policies that are going on, write about whether somebody came knocking on your door to ask for your vote, and whether you said, well, I could give you my vote, but are you going to stop spraying the skies? Are you going to withdraw from any intention of war? Are you going to stop taxing us to the hilt? You know, there may be 100 questions that you might want to ask anybody who's there with the begging bowl asking for your vote. But you could record it in paper. You could record what goes on in your towns, the amount of 5G towers that are going up. And as I mentioned yesterday, somebody said that there was a World War II siren on a pole had come up. What's that all about? Are we expecting some emergencies? Are we not being told about this? I queried, when did it go up? And he said, well, must have gone up in the last few months, put up at night, you know, it's almost like nobody's noticed. That's where we need to be writing them down in our diaries. The things that are going on around that we may think are just ordinarily, for the historians of the future who will be recording and will know certain statistics that will be written by the victors, but we need to keep a note and a diary and an account of what's going on, because that way the truth will come out in the future. Because there may be a few false stories, of course, but on the whole, most people will write honestly, earnestly, honourably about what's going on in their lives. And we've almost forgotten that art of diary keeping, which is so important. I'm not talking about writing online on a vlog or anything like that, or a blog, vlog, whatever, because that can be manipulated. We've seen how AI can go back and rewrite stuff, how your entry on Wikipedia or whatever it is can be changed, your posts on Facebook can be removed. This is hard evidence, and keeping a diary is very simple. It's a discipline, I grant you, and it's easy to forget some days, but it doesn't matter. The more of us that keep a diary at the moment of the weird and strange events that may not seem so strange, but go back in a year's time and start reading about what was going on. Anybody who kept a diary during the lockdown, for example, anybody who kept a diary during the rollout of a certain medical intervention and would be writing perhaps some of the messages that were coming from mainstream media, or the responses from people, the neighbours and the friends and the family, anyone who's got diaries of that, this is gold. Because go back and read that, how humanity changed on a sixpence, how people's perceptions of the world were fashioned by the mainstream media, by the news, by people around you, and how stupid many people were for just accepting stuff that they had no knowledge of. And now we see that the rollout of something untested, without any knowledge of what it would be like in 10 years' time, or given to pregnant women, we're beginning to see how disastrous that was. That information will be in the diaries of those people who've kept them in the past. Stuff online is easily washed away, manipulated. Get it on something solid. So I urge you, if you've never done it before, it doesn't have to be long entries. It may only be just a one line. It may be just about the weather. Saw planes today, saw those streaks in the sky. Later on, there was absolutely no sun. Feeling wheezy, feeling cold, whatever it might be, keep a diary. This is going to be absolutely essential for looking back in the future at the tyranny that has been put against us by those people who say that they are here for our benevolence, but actually we know that they're perpetrating the things of the dark ways, and we won't tolerate it. And if we know about it on paper, in our diaries, kept perhaps on a secret place in the house, we can tell the next generation, those doubting Thomases, like my son, who thinks I'm an idiot for believing the things I believe, and say, it's all in here, incrementally. And perhaps one day he'll go through this, maybe when I'm gone, and go, my God, my dad was talking about it back then, and I didn't believe him. Maybe the future will be saved by people writing just simply the facts in their diaries.